Detective Eric Matthews. Detective Matthews spends 2 whole movies suffering in Jigsaw's games. First, he's chained up in the bathroom. Later, he's dragged back into another trap, beaten and broken, one leg shattered so badly he can barely stand. By the time we see him in Saw 4, he's a wreck, chained up again, this time with a noose around his neck, standing on a melting block of ice. The setup is pure Saw. Matthews is balanced, the ice slowly melting under his feet. Another victim is nearby, rigged to die if he falls. The tension builds until the trap finally triggers. 2 massive blocks of ice swing down like wrecking balls and crush his head, exploding it in a spray of blood. It's one of those Saw deaths people never forget. Matthews was a main character for multiple films, and to see him go out in such a spectacular, gruesome way cements it as one of the franchise's most iconic kills. Paul Leahy. Paul wakes up in a cell lit by a single, flickering fluorescent light. At first, the room looks empty, but then he notices the floor. It's not flooring at all. It's miles of barbed wire coiled into a twisted, winding maze. The walls are covered in metal hooks and the air smells like rust and sweat. The tape tells him he has 2 hours to crawl through the maze and escape. It sounds simple when you hear it, but the moment Paul puts his hand on the wire, the hooks dig deep into his skin. He winces, pulls back, and realizes there's no way forward without cutting himself open. He forces himself to move, crawling slowly, the barbed wire tearing into his arms, slicing across his chest, wrapping into his clothes and ripping them apart. Every movement adds another wound, another line of blood. The cuts get deeper, longer, until his body is painted red. He screams, but the echoes bounce back at him off the cold walls. He keeps crawling, weaker with every inch. Blood pools beneath him, mixing with the steel and grime. By the time he's halfway through, he's already lost too much. His movement slow, his strength drains, and he collapses face first into the wire. Hours later, when his body is found, it's barely recognizable. Shredded flesh hanging from twisted steel. A man who literally bled out in a cage of razors. Mark Wilson. Mark wakes up in a room that feels suffocating the second he opens his eyes. The walls are covered in thousands of numbers, scrawled in black paint, the air heavy with fumes. He looks down and sees that his skin glistens. It's covered in some kind of gel. The tape plays and he learns the awful truth. It's flammable. He's holding a candle and he has to use it to find the correct combination for the safe that holds his way out. Every movement feels like a gamble. He holds the candle in front of him, staring at the endless numbers, sweat dripping down his face. His breath is shallow because he's terrified. One exhale will be enough to spark an inferno. He searches, walking carefully. The candlelight flickering on the walls, but there are too many numbers. Thousands. His panic builds. He stumbles, his hands shaking, and the candle tips. The gel on his body ignites instantly. Flames roar across his chest, crawling up his arms and legs. He drops the candle, screaming, thrashing against the walls. The room fills with light as his body burns alive, his screams echoing down the hallway. When the fire finally dies, all that's left is a charred corpse in a room still glowing with the orange of melted wax and burnt paint. If you enjoyed this video so far, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. Addison Corday. Addison thinks she's found salvation. She's been breathing in the nerve gas for hours, coughing, getting weaker. Then she sees it. A glass box dangling from the ceiling. A single syringe inside. The antidote. If she can get it, she can live. She climbs up, pushes her arm into the opening, and wraps her fingers around the syringe. That's when she feels it. Razors. Thin, sharp blades lining the slot. When she tries to pull her arm back, the razors dig in, slicing into her skin. She yanks harder, screaming as the blades bite deeper. Blood drips down her arm, pooling on the floor. She thrashes, trying to tear herself free, but every move makes it worse. The syringe slips from her hand and shatters on the floor, the liquid spilling out. She slams her other hand inside, desperate, only to trap both arms. The razors slice deeper and deeper as she screams, her blood smearing the glass, her face pressed against the box in horror. No one comes back for her. The others leave her there, her arms shredded, her screams echoing through the house until they fade. Xavier Chavez. Xavier is the kind of guy who makes your skin crawl. He spends the whole movie bullying the others, shouting threats, throwing people around. By the end, he's a monster with a machete, chasing Amanda and Daniel through the house like prey. The chase leads them to the bathroom, the same disgusting, bloodstained bathroom from the first Saw. The chains are still there, the saws are still there, and Xavier thinks it's where he's going to finish the job. He swings the machete, cornering them, when Daniel suddenly turns and slashes his throat with a hacksaw. Xavier drops the machete, stumbling, clutching at his neck as blood pours between his fingers. He staggers backward, choking, and collapses onto the filthy tile. His blood mixes with the dried stains from Adam and Lawrence, another body claimed by that cursed bathroom. Troy. Troy wakes up in a classroom, but it looks more like a slaughterhouse. His arms, legs, chest, and even his jaw are pierced with heavy steel chains anchored to the walls. The tape tells him he has to rip them all out before the timer runs out and the bomb in the room detonates. The first chain comes out of his arm. He screams, blood spraying across the floor. He rips out another, then another, each one leaving a fresh wound. The one in his side nearly takes him down, but he keeps going, the sound of flesh tearing and chains clattering filling the room. His body is shredded, his skin hanging in strips, his face pale from blood loss. He gets down to the last few chains, the timer ticking faster and faster when it's too late. The bomb detonates, the explosion rips through the classroom, fire and shrapnel tearing his body apart in an instant. 1 second he's fighting, the next he's gone, obliterated by the blast. Timothy Young. Timothy wakes up strapped into what looks like a medieval torture device built out of wood and steel pipes. His arms are locked in place, his legs braced, his head clamped. Then the gears start turning. Slowly, his right arm twists backward until the bone snaps like a branch. His scream fills the room, raw and broken. The machine doesn't stop. His other arm is next, twisting until the skin tears and the joints crack apart. His legs follow, snapping one after another, the sound of bones shattering echoing through the walls. Timothy's body convulses with every twist, his face drenched in sweat and tears. Finally, the machine turns to his head. The crank spins, his neck twisting inch by inch until it finally gives way with a sickening snap. His head hangs limp, his body completely broken. The rack doesn't just kill him, it dismantles him one piece at a time. Detective Allison Carey. Detective Carey finds herself chained in a dark, narrow room. Hooks are buried deep under her ribcage, attached to a mechanical rig that looks like something ripped from a butcher shop. A jar of acid sits nearby, a key sinking to the bottom. She plunges her hand in, the acid burning her skin as she fumbles for the key. She screams, her flesh blistering, but she manages to grab it and unlocks the shackles. For a second, she thinks she's free. She pulls at the chains, but nothing happens. Then the timer hits 0. The machine kicks to life, tearing her ribs wide open with a metallic shriek. Her chest splits apart, blood pouring down her torso as she's ripped in half. Her scream cuts short, leaving only the sound of gears grinding. She never had a chance. Seth Baxter. Seth wakes up strapped to a table, his arms pinned down, his legs locked. Above him, a massive pendulum swings back and forth, a steel blade slowly lowering with each swing. The tape tells him he can survive if he crushes his hands inside 2 vices. The blade drops closer, nicking his chest. Seth panics, slams his hands into the vices, and twists. The sound of bones crunching echoes as he screams in agony, his blood dripping across the floor. He does exactly what he's told, but the pendulum doesn't stop. The blade swings lower and lower until it cuts into his stomach. His screams turn into chokes as his insides spill out onto the table. The pendulum slices again and again until his body is torn in half. It was never a test, it was pure revenge. Evan. Evan wakes up glued to the seat of a car, his back stuck to the upholstery like cement. His friends are chained in brutal positions around the vehicle, one behind the car, one under the wheels, one chained to a post in front. The tape tells him he has to rip himself free before the timer runs out or the car will start. He struggles, his skin tearing as he tries to pull away from the seat. His screams grow louder as blood smears across the upholstery. The timer hits 0, the engine roars, and the car jerks forward. The first chain rips his friend's jaw off in an explosion of blood. The wheels roll over another, crushing his chest. The car plows into the third, snapping his body against the post. Evan finally tears free, but too late. The car smashes through the garage and he's launched through the windshield, his body breaking as he hits the pavement. 4 people dead in one of the bloodiest chain reactions in the series.